All right. So the term fascist gets tossed around a lot by people who have no idea what the term means, and I think that it's a very cool thing to research because it's a very violent and a very sadistic ideology, and I really want to explore what fascism really is. So today I'm going to be looking at what fascism really is, the history of it leading up until the modern day, leading from the history and the beginnings of fascism, which start around World War One, up until the modern day. So, to start off, we have to go back to the beginning, like with all good things. So, we're going to look at the history of fascism. So, it has its roots originally in a hierarchical structure that was found in European monarchies and took that control to the extreme, giving absolute power to the monarchs and things like Carlinism, which was the Spanish Empire. It's very ultra-nationalist in nature. It believes that one's race is more important than any other determining quality about one's person, which is very peculiar. It is very traditionalist, and it's very anti-communist, very anti-progressive. It's very one of the founding principles of Adolf Hitler's rise to power was that of its anti-communist nature. And it believes in survival of the fittest, that those who are weak should not be allowed to live, which was infamous when Hitler or the Nazi regime rather imposed eugenics onto the mentally disabled. So after World War I, we saw the rise of fascism in the first fascist nation, and that of Italy, with Benito Mussolini rising to power in 1922 on his march on Rome. Of course, we have the infamous rise of the Nazis in 1933, thanks to Hitler and the Great Depression. We had the Hungarian fascists rise, which weren't really fascist until Hitler got involved and influenced them. In the 1930s, with Regent Nicholas Horthy rising to power, who's the former head of the Navy. We have the somewhat kind of fascist regimes of that of Vargas, who was the leader of Brazil, and Salazar, who was the leader of Portugal. We had the Spanish fascism after the Spanish Civil War, which was supported by the Axis, and the rise of Francisco Franco, who was a Spanish dictator and almost a fascist. He didn't join the war on the side of the Axis, but he did give them aid. We had the Romanian Iron Guard, which rose after the multiple territorial expansions of Romania leading up to after World War I, doubling Romania in size, which sided with the Axis. There was multiple failed fascist states. So we have that of the British Union of Fascists, which was a sizable fascist movement in England mostly. We have the Ustaše, which was a Croatian group of ultranationalists who tried to split apart from the Yugoslavia. We have the Irish Corporate Party, which was a group of Irish fascists that could have, if they had wanted to, taken over Ireland and started a war with English for Northern Ireland. We have the Finnish movement of the Laupa movement, which attempted a coup d'etat to take over the Finnish government in the 1930s, which were ultranationalists and hated the Soviets. We have Iraqi nationalism with the Golden Square, which actually joined the Axis for a short while, but then were beat back by the British in their colonies in the Middle East. And there was actually a quote-unquote fascist coup d'etat called the Business Plot that took place in the 1930s. It's debated whether or not it was actually real or not, but some suppose that it could be real and it could hold some water. So after this, there was kind of like a powder keg similar to that of World War I, where fascist movements in that of like Romania and Germany, obviously, were wanting to get back old territorial claims of that of Poland, and of course the annexation of Austria. So, we see these kind of similar borders to what we have today, minus that of Germany, Poland, really, but basically the same borders. Then we see about 4 years in the future where we see a complete shift of the borders and the map. We see the forced fascist regimes of Vichy France, the annexation of Denmark, the puppet regimes of Norway, Belarus, Ukraine, Poland, Serbia, Bohemia, Slovakia, the annexation of Albania, the puppet state of the independent state of Croatia, the the fascist regimes of Belgium and the Netherlands, which were puppet regimes there. Huge movements where, for basically 4 or 5 years, all of Europe was, for the most part, under some kind of fascist rule. It's very, very, very different. There's also if you could tell there's a shift in the borders back to the pre-World War I borders, where Hungary actually grew in size and took some of Romania's former land, as well as Poland shifting more east, Ukraine, all of that shifting more east to give Germany more land. So there was an expansionary kind of view that Germany was the best. And after the fall of the Germans and the fall of World War II, we know how the story goes. We know how the Germans lost, World War II ended, the Holocaust, and just the terrible, terrible repercussions that came after. But actually, there have been multiple fascist movements and actually fascist takeovers of government ever since World War II. So most recently, we have that of the Golden Dawn Party, which is currently the third largest party in Greece, which has a swastika for their party. They are quite literally neo-fascist. Anybody that says otherwise is lying. We have the Kateb Party of Lebanon, which took control of the government for a short time in the 1980s. We have the Turkish government, which has large fascist sympathizers within the current government right now, as well as actual fascist parties that are pro-rise of the Ottoman Empire again, which are currently in the Ottoman Legislative Assembly. And then we, of course, have the infamous alt-right, which is more of a worldwide identitarian movement, which takes place around America and Europe and other such places. So, yeah, that's my presentation on the history and the rise of the violent ideology known as fascism. I thank you for your time.